Okay, I just dropped some water on me, so that's great. Hello everyone, I'm Adina from Plants But Better, and today I'll be talking about Rhaphidophora Tetrasperma, or the easiest way to call it, mini Monstera. I know it's not actually a Monstera, but it's way popular under that name, so I'll be sticking with that for the rest of the video. So the first time I got this plant, I actually lost it to root rot. Did that stop me to buy another plant? Of course not, as you can see. And if you've seen any of my videos, I think I mentioned root rot in each and every one of them, but this is how you learn from experience. Anyway, for the care meter, I think this plant is a solid 8 because you really need to do some research before you take proper care of it. Okay, so light, where should you place your mini Monstera? And yes, you guessed it, this plant needs a lot of bright indirect light. The better the light, the better the growing. If this plant doesn't get enough light, the new growth will come out as very tiny and the leaves will actually go back to juvenile form. And I have an example for you. From this propagation, we can see very tiny leaves that don't look very much alike with these ones right here. Okay. These are small leaves with no fenestrations, and if you don't like that in your plant, you can definitely cut them and propagate them. I'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. If you really want this mini Monstera and you don't have enough light for it, you can definitely help it with some grow lights. We've tried that, it was successful, it definitely grows well, so there's no need to worry about that. Okay, what about watering? When is best to water your mini Monstera? Through trial and error, I discovered that you need to water this plant when the soil is almost completely dry. So I water mine once a week during summer and once every 2 weeks during winter. But it's very important to check the soil every time you water it because your watering schedule may be different than mine. Those roots are very sensitive to a lot of water, and if your mini Monstera stays in a soggy soil for too long, this leads to root rot. So be careful with that. What about temperature? How hot she likes it? You can place your mini Monstera under average temperature. It does quite well. Mine stays at around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius. You can go higher than this, but definitely not lower than 15 degrees Celsius. Great, what about humidity? Rhaphidophora Tetrasperma likes a bit more humidity. I grow mine in 60%, but I find it quite adaptable, so if you can give it at least 50%, it will stay happy. Fertilizer, when is best and when it's not. I fertilize my mini Monstera once a week during growing season, and in the winter time I usually stop doing that. However, if your home is warm and if your mini Monstera is still growing during winter, you can still fertilize it with a bit less fertilizer than you usually do in the summer and a bit less frequently. Once every 2 months is great during colder periods of time. What about the NPK ratio? I like to give mine a ratio of 10-10-10 or 20-20-20. You can use a regular houseplants fertilizer, that's good as well. I've tried that and it does the job. So whatever you have in your home is great. This plant is very hardy and it can grow with anything. Good. What about substrate? Ever since I got problems with root rot, I like to give my plants a very light mix based pretty much on cocoa coir, some perlite and some pine barks. You can use that, the plant will be fine, but please, whatever you do, don't just use regular potting soil because sometimes, if not most of the time, that is really very heavy for the roots. If you have just regular potting soil at your disposal, please consider adding at least some perlite because it will make a difference. It will make the soil a bit more forgiving. Now you know about the substrate, but what about the pots? Do I need plastic pots or terracotta pots? Well, the answer for this is both. You can use both. This might be a little bit deceiving because this is not a terracotta pot, it's actually a planter. In here is still plastic, but I've tried growing it in terracotta as well and it does grow pretty much the same. You have to be careful about the watering schedule because in terracotta the water evaporates more quickly and you have to water it a bit more, but not too often because again, root problems. Great, what about repotting? I think I have an example in here. Oh, no, not this one. Yeah, this one is not great either. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that you need to see the roots coming out of the pot. Not just some tiny roots, those are not really enough to repot, but massive growth. You have to see massive growth. It's best to choose a pot slightly bigger, not too big, because the roots will not accommodate well. And it's best to do that in the warmer periods of time because the plant is very much growing then and the roots will recover a bit faster from damage. It's not 100% necessary, but it could make a difference. Let's move on to propagation. And in here, the safest way to propagate is to cut below the node and place your cutting into water and then just wait. I have with me 2 water examples. Oh my god. Okay, I just dropped some water on me, so that's great. Anyway, moving on from my clumsiness, I have a water example in here with the roots already grown. Can you see it? I hope so. And another one here, which is a bit more recent. Again, the roots are growing quite nicely. Another way is by leafless stem cuttings. This is great when your plant is leggy and you want to fix that. Just cut your stem into segments containing at least a node. Place them in a clean container with sphagnum moss and some cocoa coir, and place them into a zip bag and wait. And then you'll get new plants and you can share them with your friends. Let's move on to pests, those annoying little creatures. I did have at some point a problem with thrips, but I spot them in time and I got rid of them. So I advise you to inspect the plant every time you water it. This is great for prevention. Another problem could be with spider mites, but then again, if you spot them in time, prevention is the best medicine. So please inspect your plant every time you get the chance. What about pets? Is this plant safe around pets? And unfortunately, it is not. This is mildly toxic, it can cause irritation and other side effects, so it's best to keep it away from any curious, beautiful pet. Well, that's kinda it with this video, and if you have more questions, you can leave them in the comments and I'll make sure to answer as much as I can. And until next time, please take care of your plants for me.